let's talk about some early spring practice thoughts. Just continuing the right tackle position. It was announced that going into spring, Bryce Levette is the starter. Not necessarily a surprise, maybe a little unexpected, because I thought we would keep him inside.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think he got settled in the Tulane bowl game. Like early on, you could see some struggle. Maybe you could play more of the right guard, maybe not. But you saw him settle down. The offensive line played better in the second half of that Tulane game, to where you can have the argument for Bryce Levette. Other names that were mentioned fighting for the job: Caden Jones, former 4-star, Devin Manuel, experienced offensive tackle from Arkansas. I think he took a red shirt this past season. And Fletcher Westfall, the higher rated guy that we talked a lot about, especially after the Tulane game.
Yeah, I'm glad you addressed that, because I was going to ask you how surprised you were, not about, because I mean, both of us, I think, thought there was a pretty high possibility that Bryce Levette could earn a starting spot on this offensive line. We've both been pretty bullish on the possibility of something like that happening. I'm not sure either of us really thought it would be at right tackle. I think we both kind of thought he could compete with Damian George potentially, or even Najee Harris for one of the guard spots.
I didn't think Levette could really. I mean, he could fight for a starting spot. I've been high on Levette since the Miami game. I mean, I've talked about Levette a lot. I don't know if he could beat out George. I don't think he beat out George. I think George is really good at right guard. I think I said maybe Harris, but still, I don't know if he'll beat him out. I mean, he could. They're not perfect players. They're not first-round projected picks or anything like that. They're not All-American like Jake Slaughter was. They're not Austin Barber, who's getting first-round projected picks by some people. So he could, but I think it would be a shock to me if he was.
Yeah, that's a good point. I also would say I'm not going to like completely rule out that they might target a tackle in the portal in the second round. Like, I think maybe outside of defensive tackle, it's probably the position I would say they're most likely to try to find someone for, or at least someone who can compete. But I mean, I'm curious to see how this all progresses in spring, because they didn't choose to replace Brandon Crenshaw Dixon with someone in the portal. And so you're really going to see, because I mean, Florida's offensive line recruiting hasn't exactly been like up to, from a rankings perspective, up to where we'd want it to be. Seems like the development's been pretty solid. I mean, we're really going to find out, because one of these tackles probably, unless they add someone else, the starting tackle is probably going to be someone that's young and homegrown. So, we're going to really find out, I think. But so it's like one of those things where, is Levette getting first team reps to start spring? Like, is that a sign that, these guys are developing nicely? Or is it a sign that, a guy like Fletcher Westfall, who we thought maybe could take that job, hasn't emerged? That's just kind of one of those things I don't think we know yet. And we'll just have to kind of see how the battle progresses in spring and beyond.
One benefit Billy does get this year that he hasn't had any other season is that the first 2 games are going to be cupcake games.
Yeah.
So we can try out different players. Like, I mean, we saw it this year where we played Austin Barber, Devin Manuel a bunch, Cam Waits a bunch. Crenshaw Dixon didn't even start the season, ends up being a guy who could be drafted this year. So a lot will change between today and by the time we get to LSU, is when really the season does begin. I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how I wanted to start the segment, but we kind of led into it perfectly talking about right tackle. When the day came on Thursday, the first thing I looked at was the spring roster. The first thing that caught my eye, I messaged you about it, was Stephon Shivers. Nose tackle, true freshman coming in, listed at 399 pounds. Now, I believe 247 had him listed at 265 coming out of high school. He's either put a lot of weight on in a couple months, or 247 hasn't updated in a while.
Yeah.
The difference between him and what we saw at Des Watson really fluctuated from 425 to what,
449. 449 is where he topped out at on the roster this year.
So 449. So he's not as big as Des Watson was, but I think the difference with Shivers is we've seen a lot of his weight be muscle before really putting on the weight to get bigger for nose tackle. So I do think there could be a difference in the upside. Where Des Watson, he's going to be a great space filler. I mean, Watson was 6'6", 449.
6'5",
I believe
I think, but yeah.
6'5". So
Yeah.
but he's not gonna really be making elite level plays. While with Shivers, I think he's 6'4", 6'5", maybe.
I
399
thought
pounds.
6'3". I thought 6'4" or 6'3". I
So
could be
probably
wrong.
6'4".
Yeah.
247 has Shivers listed at 6'4",
Okay.
399 now. Okay, so yeah, 6'4", 399. So more potential to be a playmaker rather than just a play stuffer, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like I think like when you talk about like Des Watson, I think it was like both a positive and a negative with him, like his size, because like it kind of just made him a bit of a one-trick pony, which he was pretty solid at. I mean, managed to earn a role in the rotation. I would agree, though. I think Shivers has a higher ceiling, and I think Shivers, I mean, because we've talked about that, that opening there at nose tackle, like he has a path to see the field this year. I mean,
Absolutely.
you don't see it a ton for defensive tackles, but you don't see a lot of guys coming at defensive tackle at 399, or at least
No.
coming at 399 that don't have a lot of like body transformation they need to do. That like I don't think that's a lot of like baby fat for Stephon Shivers. I think he's pretty built dude.
Yeah, what Michael Dixon's saying, he has good
Yeah.
feet. He can move. We saw some drills of his from that was posted with him practicing with Gerald Chapman, the defensive line coach. So he's someone that I was already pretty excited about coming into Florida, but now is someone that we can look at and be like, okay, he might actually be able to make an early impact. I think the other thing worth a note, we talked about it a little bit earlier with the injury situation, was Jamari Lyons actually practicing. I mean, practicing a little bit isn't the same as being 100% ready to go. But if he's already practicing March 9th, I would be shocked if he's not ready to go by September 1st, which I think is huge because he was someone that we was talked about coming into the season as someone who's going to be a really good backup to Cam Jackson, have a chance to show out even more than what he had done in 2023. So I think getting him time not just to get healthy, but time to also continue working on his game, it does secure my thought about the nose tackle position a lot more.
Yeah. It was an ACL for Lions, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, and it was an ACL in fall camp, correct? It was before the season started?
Yeah, I was in fall camp, like week 1 or 2 of fall camp.
Yeah, so he should be fine by this fall camp, like assuming no setbacks. And the fact that he's like suiting up and stuff for spring is a good sign. I mean, I think defensive tackle to me is like very similar to the right tackle position in the sense that it's like when you look at the roster right now, it looks like probably one of the biggest holes, but it's not like there's no options there. It's just you don't have the proven experience. Maybe a guy like Jamari Lyons like is just ready. And if he is, like if he can come in and be like at least a replacement level player there, I think that would probably change sort of the outlook that you and I discussed about the position when we did the, positional grades heading into spring ball. I think we'd maybe look at that a little bit differently if, Lyons is like a bona fide, quality starter.
Yeah, Kenny Hawthorne, do you think Big Dez gets a shot in the NFL?
No,
I'm sorry.
No, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think he'll be the next Vince Wilfork, but bigger.
And he's not good enough at what he does to counter the fact that like you just can't really be that effective. And also, I don't know if Vince Wilfork could play at that size in today's NFL.
Yeah. All right, so you got anything else to say on the D-line? I mean, Banks, we already know we're getting with him. Yeah. Bourreau was talked up a little bit. Napier said he really liked what he saw from Bourreau last season.
Did you hear anything on like Asare? Any notes there? I haven't really seen anything from him.
I haven't heard anything from here. No.
I was just curious.
We already talked about Lagway with the QB room. Is there anything you want to discuss? I think I've seen a little bit from Tramel Jones that I really like. That maybe he could. I mean, I don't think he'll pass Harrison Bailey unless a situation happens that we talked about a couple weeks ago, where it's a long like Lagway gets injured early and Tramel's just a higher ceiling than Bailey. But I don't think he'll pass Bailey for like the true backup role.
Especially because you want to redshirt him because if this all goes to plan with Billy Napier and DJ Lagway, DJ's here. DJ has another year after this. So it's not even like you don't care if Tramel burns that red shirt because he's going to have to come in and start next year. Like that's not even there's no real rush with him. I mean, I am curious to see Harrison Bailey just because, for a guy who's played five years of college football at this point, we haven't really seen a ton of him. So, be curious to see what he looks like. But I mean, Yeah, aside from that, like I'll be honest, like the quarterback room is just not particularly interesting when DJ Lagway is not throwing the ball.
Hey, it could be with Tramelo Jones.
Yeah, it could be.
I saw some nice deep balls from him that really shook. So I didn't think he had that much arm strength.
Yeah, the only upside to like DJ potentially not being able to throw in the spring game would mean that we'd be able to see a lot more of Tramel Jones. That would be the only upside.
Yeah. All right. I think the two positions that have generated the most excitement so far in the 2 days of practice we've had on Thursday and Saturday have been wide receiver and corner. Shocker, Florida produces a lot of athletic, quick guys that play receiver and corner. Which one do you want to talk about first?
Let's curve here. Let's talk about the one you've been kind of on more than anyone, Nahshon.
Okay, the wide receiver room.
Yeah. You've been like riding for him. Everyone's talking about the 5 stars, but he's kind of been your guy, I feel like.
Well, I gotta admit, I think Dallas Wilson right now has been the most impressive of them all. Yeah, I feel like we've kind of underlooked it a bit because like he was the 5-star, and we're like, oh, it usually isn't the top guy. It's probably like the second or third guy that ends up breaking out. I feel like Dallas Wilson looks different right now in those early practices. Yeah. My biggest questions about him were how fast is he and his footwork, route running. There's been a lot of clips of the receivers practicing their footwork. Dallas Wilson might be the best receiver on this roster already from a footwork. They did a comparison I saw of Dallas Wilson and Jermichael Sturdivant. Mm-hmm. And Wilson just looks so much twitchier, so much quicker. They're both listed. Let's see. Sturdivant 6'2.5", 216, and number 6. Dallas Wilson 6'3", 209. So what Wilson does have a bit more size on him, which honestly makes it a bit more shocking. Just how quick Dallas Wilson looks with that footwork. If he can actually catch the football, I'm thinking of backtracking a bit and just picking Dallas Wilson as that breakout receiver.
Well, so like what I will say is like the drills that we're seeing right now are not going to tell you anything about a guy's like route running ability, about how good he is, like at the, coming off the line, about how his hands are. But I will give you this, like when you see Dallas Wilson out there, and I'm not saying he's going to be as good as these guys. I'm just saying that when you see him, he looks like in the same way as like a Ryan Williams or a Jeremiah Smith. Like he's a true freshman who from day one looks like he belongs out there. Like there's nothing, you don't look at him and be like, that guy's a year away from being an SEC receiver. Like now he looks like an SEC receiver right now.
You see that there's just that difference. Like you can have a really good player on a G5 team. They can come be a solid player in the SEC. You can see the difference between that and the 5-star level talent that Dallas Wilson is.
Yeah.
He just has that next level to him.
It's been so long since Florida's had a guy like that. Yeah.
And a true receiver, not a gadget guy. Vernell Brown's looked good. He's looked quick and twitchy and everything. Like he was a 5-star, obviously, but that 5'11" shorter status. So not really a jump ball type of guy or true number 1 wide receiver threat like Dallas Wilson is. Because, we've had good receivers, too. Like, Ricky Pearsall was a first-round draft pick. Elijah Badger and Chimere Dike are going to be first-round draft – or not first-round. They're likely both going to be NFL draft picks.
Yeah.
So, and I think Wilson he looks like he has that next level to him.
Yeah, it's really hard to imagine this guy just like red shirts this year and doesn't have more and only has like 4 catches. Like it's really hard to see that happening. Personally, like, again, we'll see. I'd really like to see him in the spring game, hopefully with DJ Lagway, because you just don't know how it's going to translate. But all of these all 3 of these freshman receivers to me look like they're capable of potentially impacting on day one. Obviously, Dallas looks them. Yeah, that's what I said. Michael said that too. Yeah, like Vernell looks like he's maybe ready to go too. Like these guys, and even Nahshon, I think like all these guys look good for day one SEC receivers.
Yeah, they all do. We've heard talking about it. Russ Callaway, I think recently said they're working on getting more 4- and 5-man rotate or wide receiver lineups out there. We haven't seen it much really at all under Napier, but I think now that we have so much high level wide receiver talent, you just got to put them on the field. Especially when you compare it to the tight end room. I'm sorry. I don't really want to see Hayden Hansen out there lined up with Caleb Rios when I can see maybe the one tight end, Hayden Hansen, or Amir Jackson. Honestly, put Amir out there. Line him up next to Jermichael Sturdivant. Trey Wilson, Aiden Mizell, one of the 3 freshman receivers. That's exciting right there.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I don't hate the idea of like what they've been doing with trying to like, focus on 12 personnel. Like that's fine. A lot of teams have success doing that, but Florida doesn't really have the personnel to do that because they haven't had the tight ends. So, I mean, to me, like I've been very critical of Billy's offense, but like, I mean, if they're going to reverse engineer the kind of offense I want by running more spread and then going with giving an air raid guy and Russ Callaway more input, like I would have rather they just hired a normal OC to change the scheme. But I mean, if they're willing to, go 3-4 wide and do all that and throw the ball more, like, okay, let's ride.
I think you also have to put some effort into like the familiarity that Lagway will have with keeping the same OC. Or
just to clarify, Michael, he is not calling plays. Billy is still calling plays
at an official full-time level. I've heard Callaway calls some plays still. That's what I've heard.
Well, play calling's collaborative. I mean, I don't think play calling for anyone is like one person dictating everything, but like I don't really expect there to be a significant difference in how play calling works this season. I mean, maybe you've heard something to the other effect, but
yeah, George, right here. I'm excited. I can't wait. There's just so much young talent. I mean, the wide receiver room. It's kind of surreal because like we haven't really had that in so long. I mean, we had a good receiver room back in 2019. I mean, 2020, obviously, if you count like Kyle Pitts and tight ends, it was a really good receiving room, but that was from a different perspective of actually having pass catcher and true wide receivers. And you go back to 2019 when we had Van Jefferson, Trevon Grimes, Tyree Cleveland, Freddie Swain, Josh Hammond. Like those were good wide receivers. And when you add them all up, it equates to probably a top 5 wide receiver room in the SEC. But now we're looking to have that with maybe guys like Sturdivant, Trey Wilson, Dallas Wilson, Vernell, Mizell, like guys that could turn it up a notch to that top 2 level room in the SEC.
Yeah, like I think the big key here is like all those guys that you mentioned back in like 2019, like those were all good players, but they were all sort of limited in some, like none of them were at an elite level relative to college football. And I'm not saying any of these guys are, but certainly they have the potential to be.
Yep. Hey, we had a Kadarius Toney, first round draft pick.
Yeah, that's true. And what's funny is Kadarius Toney of all the guys on that team was like the lowest rated. Like Trayvon Grimes was a 5-star. But Kadarius Toney was like not even that. He was he was a
high 3-star
quarterback. Yeah, but he was a high 3-star as like a quarterback, as an athlete.
I know Nick Saban really wanted Kadarius Toney as well. Like,
but I'm not sure. Like, I don't know if he was getting recruited to be like a straight up receiver by a lot of teams. Like, I'm not even sure McElwain was recruiting him to do that.
All right, yeah. Getting back on track here. I think I've also seen some good stuff from Sturdivant. Like, he's fast, he's tall, he can catch the football. He's going to be someone that you also give him some of that Billy Gonzalez development. He can be that guy. That's the wide receiver 1. I'm starting to feel a bit more confident that he's going to be that wide receiver 1. Like Trey Wilson might get the most targets because of his position and the way he plays. He might get those 10 targets a game, but Sturdivant can get 5 and go for 100 yards, while Trey Wilson can get 10 and go for like 60.
Yeah, I think Sturdivant fills a really important role here because, like, I like the talent here, but you really needed a guy like that in the portal. I think this offseason, I think that really completes it. And, like, even if you've got these young guys that can step up, I think Sturdivant's still poised to have, like, I would probably be willing to bet. I might be willing to bet that Sturdivant's the leading receiver. Between the fact that, Trey maybe hasn't been able, like maybe won't be able to play every game, or just, we'll have a quiet game where he gets keyed in on. I wouldn't be surprised if Sturdivant ends up being the leading receiver.
Yeah, I mean, we've also seen Trey route run a little bit in the spring so far. It's obviously only been 2 practices. Saw it a little bit this year. I mean, the Kentucky game, we had a deep ball catch. So I think if he's healthy, we might see a good bit of it. I mean, if we are doing this 4 and 5 wide, like Callaway said, then we'll definitely see Trey Wilson run some actual routes.
Yeah.
All right. And then I think we need to get into the defensive back room. I think
Sorry, before we move on, one more note on the receivers. Did we talk about we didn't talk about, I don't think, Mizell missing practice. Mizell wasn't there, right?
I did not even see that.
Yeah, Mizell was not at practice, I guess today or yesterday, whenever the last practice was.
Saturday.
Yeah, I don't think there's so yesterday. I don't think a ton of clarity on what that was about. I'm not sure it's like serious or anything, but yeah, he was held out apparently.
I did see Mizell lost some weight, which is not good. He was already a smaller wide receiver for the SEC. But let's see, latest Aiden Mizell. I'm not really seeing anything. Although I did just see something interesting bring up real quick about special teams. The players who are working in the return game were Trey Wilson. I doubt we see him return with his injury concerns. Tank Hawkins, someone we both mentioned on our previews. Jaden Ball, someone we also mentioned because he returned last year. But now that he's a starter, I doubt we see it. Jacoby Jackson, we mentioned him as well as maybe replacing Ball. Jermichael Sturdivant, I doubt we see against starters. Aiden Mizell, maybe, but if you see with these injuries. Vernell Brown III, that's the one I could see really returning. Duke Clark, walk on. Dallas Wilson, I don't know if he's much of a return man. Maybe maybe he has really good hands, which, again, we talk about if he has really good hands already, he's going to be a good receiver day one. Nashawn Montgomery, someone I could see. DeBron Hampton. This is actually someone I've seen a lot about for a walk-on. He was teammates with DJ Lagway at where do you play high school at? I just completely forgot. In Texas. Willis. Yep. Willis High School. He's a walk-on from he played with Lagway at Willis. Someone who's very athletic, another like slot type of guy. But I think he's someone that we have so much talent he probably won't play here. But maybe we see him go transfer to a lower level and be a pretty good player for someone like maybe in Texas or Florida, like a USF or a Texas State. Which I think would be pretty cool to see.
Yeah. Just real quick, too, to circle back, I have it right here. According to Graham Hall, Aiden Mizell did not go through drills on Saturday. He was in the weight room with the other guys who were limited during spring ball.
Okay.
And also, Khalil Jackson was apparently non-contact and didn't do routes on air. So, couple guys not fully participating in receiver.
All right, so now let's get into that defensive back room. I really don't know if there's been too much talk about it, but one guy. There's been insane hype. I mean, it's Cormani McClain. It's been said he's put on 20 pounds since joining Florida. I mean, that's just... When he came to Florida, a lot of people, including myself, said if he can put on weight, he's someone that can reach that 5-star status he was out of high school. That's always been his main problem. He's just too skinny. We saw it this past season. Got bullied by Georgia's receivers. Got bullied by Texas. I mean, he had those shining moments against Kentucky, less physical moments, but you saw that athleticism and reach that he has. But now we're starting to see him actually get that size on him that you need to play defensive back at the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly looks like he's gained 20 pounds. When you look at him, he definitely looks like he's bulked up a lot. I mean, like, we'll see. I mean, I think maybe not skeptical is not the right word, but I'm just kind of in a like, we'll see what happens there. I mean, I think it would be huge because we've talked a lot about the DB depth not being in a great spot, especially at corner. I mean, if Cormani is a guy who is capable of starting like plug and play, that changes the calculus there pretty significantly. So I mean, like, I'd love to see that. I think that would be that would maybe, aside from a guy like Lyons becoming a really good defensive tackle or something,
Absolutely.
like that could be maybe the biggest X factor this defense could have, is if they have like another really reliable starting caliber corner in Cormani McClain.
I think also something worth of note, it's not the fact that Cormani's just put on that 20 pounds. It's also the fact that they're saying he's also like locking down. He's bringing lockdown in coverage. So we know he can actually cover and he's not just a 5-star that was like, oh, if he puts the weight on and then he still can't play well. But the fact that he's put the weight on and it seems like he's still going to have that speed and athleticism to be that first-round draft pick. I mean, that's the potential of Cormani, a top 10 draft pick. I mean, he has everything you need to be an NFL corner. I mean, there's no debate about that.
Yeah, I mean the talent's there. I don't think the talent has ever been debated here.
Ultra Gator saying, I think Cormani is primed to have a breakout year. Been doing things the right way. It's a redemption story. I mean, yeah, it really is the redemption story. Was he kicked from Colorado, or was it like a mutual splitting? I can't remember.
I think. Well, I think it was more of a mutual splitting, but like it. I mean, Dion was pretty public. I mean, Dion, like, basically in press conferences last year or 2023 was like saying that he wasn't showing up to meetings, wasn't doing his preparation. Like, I mean, he was pretty publicly like critical of Cormani. So like, I don't know if he was kicked off, but like, I don't think I didn't get the impression he was in particularly good standing at Colorado.
No. Yeah, that's what I was thinking there. So it's really nice to see he was one of the three, like first, he won one of the awards, or he was like top 3. I don't know if you saw the graphic for it. I mean, it's whatever, but you being one of the top 3 players in the first spring practice for somebody that has been had such a low that he's had, it's nice to see him actually rise to the top a little bit.
Especially because you see it with a lot of guys. Like, you see a lot of guys in similar positions where it just doesn't work out and they get multiple chances and it's kind of just the same thing over and over again. And that's why, like, when he showed up as a preferred walk-on, I was like, yeah, okay, we'll see what happens. Like, not really putting any credence into it one way or the other. I mean, the fact that he's still here and still getting these opportunities, I think speaks for the fact that he's been doing it the right way, like Ultra Gator said.
Yeah. So, I mean, the rest of corners and safeties, I hate this saying, the DB room, I feel like we haven't really heard too much about. I mean, it's hard to tell with corners because you don't really know how good they can be until they actually line in someone. I mean, because like a receiver, you can see their footwork. You can see like, okay, that should translate when in coverage, but like obviously it's not a guarantee. But with the corner, again, not much you can say because they're not really being too physical in practice yet. I would suspect they won't really do that until much later in practice. So I don't know if there's anyone else you've heard anything about. Jamrier Grimesley is now Jamrock Grimesley. That's something interesting to look at, but
nice.
Nothing else that I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll just say that Bryce Thornton was one of the guys who is not completely like who's been limited in camp. So like even that makes it even harder at safety because like, I mean, right now I think we'd probably slot him in as a likely day 1 starter.
Yeah, I can't wait to see the team hit the field in a real football game. I don't know if we're including the spring practice there. I mean, the spring game.
I'm assuming he will. I'm assuming the real qualifier meant that he was not.
Yeah. Hey, I'm still pumped for it. So I think the next position worth of note is the edge position, because I think there was a lot of talk here, specifically LJ McCray. We talked about it. It's a possibility. It's now confirmed. He has moved to the jack position from the F. He can still play the F, but he's now solely focusing on the jack. We talked about it. That F position does have really good two deep with Tyreek Sapp and Cam James. So it makes sense for someone with McCray's potential to kind of try to get earlier playing time, as well as the fact that he has that explosiveness to come off the edge and be a elite edge rusher that we might not have right now. We might have some good ones. Like Gums, we talked about, is probably going to play a good bit there as well, but he doesn't have that same potential or same explosiveness that you would see from LJ McCray. So I just want to talk about it. What's your opinion on LJ moving to F?
Yeah,
or
you moving
Jack,
to
sorry.
Jack. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that it makes a lot of sense for a few reasons because, like, first of all, like you said, there's a lot of opportunities there this year, and I mean, like, I think it gives him the opportunity to maximize his skill set. I mean, like, ultimately, that's kind of the position you have in mind when you land a 5-star guy like that. You kind of hope that he can become that elite edge rusher. We'll see if he can, but I mean, I think it gives Florida the potential there that they haven't really had because they haven't had that. I mean, it's been a while since Florida's had like that elite guy coming off the edge. So certainly exciting to me there. And like, I think,
hey, Princely is going to be a 1st-round draft pick or 2nd-round draft pick.
Yeah. You know what? There you go. But a lot of people were pretty happy to see him gone, which I didn't exactly agree with, but it's in the past. We'll leave.
We still won.
Yeah. We still won. No, yeah, I mean, I think that's great. I think that shows development on his part. I mean, I think he's another guy that, like, I think a lot of the success this year hinges on if they can keep the defense playing at the level it was at the end of last season, even with everything they've lost. Well, if he's a guy that's emerging and becoming like a good quality edge rusher, then I think like those are the kind of things that are going to happen for that to be the case.
Ultra Gator, I love they eliminated the number 1 jersey on defense. I think it will make them more unified. Tyreek Sapp was talking about it, how it's just a number. It doesn't actually signify how good the player is. I mean, who were number 1 last year?
Boone, right?
Did Justice Boone were number 1 last year? Wow, that sounds right. But I'm double checking real quick because Justice Boone were number 1. Yeah, he did. So yeah, I mean, I like Sapp, who's probably the team captain on the defense at this point, coming out and saying it just doesn't really mean anything. Yeah, don't forget Antoine Powell Ryland.
Yeah, that one. Sometimes a guy leaves and like has success, and you're like, yeah, that makes sense. That one didn't really see that one coming, to be honest with you.
Yep. I think the other thing worth talking about on that edge group, Jaden Woods, is just like every time we hear him talk about the edge, there's so much praise about his work ethic, how much he's putting in his athleticism. I mean, I'm starting to think that he really was as underrated in the scouts rankings as I thought he was. Because I don't know how much he's going to be a day 1 impact, especially with LJ now moving to edge. So there's more depth, or moving to Jack. There's more depth there. But I'm really starting to like. I think he's already up to 240 pounds, which LJ McCray. Let me get these numbers here. LJ is 6'6", 264, moving to F or Jack. I don't know. I keep getting confused. Oh, wait, nope. I didn't hit go. That's 2024. All right. So now when you look at the edge group here, you have LJ, who's 6'6", 267, and you have, where's he at? Jaden Woods, 6'3", 240. So, I mean, when you add in the fact that he's 3 inches shorter, 240 pounds already, I mean, he's already getting up there to that SEC day 1 ready body.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I'm not sure he's a guy that you're going to see like get a ton of snaps this season, but like if he can work his way into being a guy who's like in the rotation at all, I think that is a huge success for the Gators.
And I think I see where LJ McCray's spot's being filled from his freshman season. Jalen Wiggins, 6'4.5". How much do you think he weighs?
Oh, man.
There was also some good talk from Billy Napier about Jalen Wiggins as well.
Was he like 260, 270?
Yeah, 270.
Okay.
I mean, Tyler Miles is putting in some work. I think Mark Hoke has actually gone back to Louisiana now. Good riddance. I mean, it seems like what Tyler Miles is doing here. I mean, we'll see how the season plays out, but from the fact that we're looking at Cormani McClain putting on all that weight, the receivers like Vernell Brown, Nashawn, and Wilson, they're already looking pretty good size wise, and you have these defensive ends and defensive linemen and edge rushers already looking like true freshman guys that already have the size to play in the SEC. I mean, big credit to Tyler Miles.
Yeah, like there have been some lingering issues throughout the Billy era that haven't exactly gotten addressed. I don't think this is one of them anymore. I think the strength program seems to be in a pretty good spot.
Well, Ultra Gator is saying here, Jaden Woods has been a tear in the weight room. I heard that's also what I heard. I heard he's been leading things in that weight room. So, getting a guy that has the athleticism to be a really good player, but now he also has that the mentality to be a leader in the weight room. That's someone that's going to come here and do really good things. Inside linebackers we all know how good this room is, how talented it is.
Yeah.
I think main talking points I have, Aaron Childs, 6'2.5", 241 pounds. I mean, when you compare that to Miles Graham, who's 6.75, 6 3/4, 227, and Grayson Howard, who's 6'4", 232. Childs, again, is getting pretty big. I think that can add up to him playing more Sam but we know he does have good athleticism to where he can still drop back and pass coverage. We talked about it, I think, a couple weeks ago. More talented, more athletic George Gums is kind of a lot what we're seeing from Aaron Childs. So that makes me happy.
Yeah, this is just a position group on the field where, like, really maybe the only position group like this on the field where it's like almost an embarrassment of riches. It's like, I don't know how they're going to put this rotation together, but that's a good thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Illustrator saying here, I would like to know which team has better linebackers than Florida.
Maybe, I mean, on a 2 deep level, certainly. I'm not sure there is another one.
Yeah, we need to see how the young players like Grayson Howard, if he can still keep up playing like how he was last year, and Miles Graham's development. If we can see them actually be like those tier 1 linebackers, then maybe we can argue Florida does have the best. The depth, again, like you said, the 2 deep is really good, but we don't have that proven elite linebacker.
Yeah.
Because Howard was really good last year, probably the most consistent linebacker up until his injury, but he wasn't elite, I wouldn't say. Which you probably need an elite linebacker to be considered the best linebacker group in the nation.
Yeah. Yeah, like I agree. It's like at the top, I don't know, but like looking at the first and second level, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, George, can't wait to beat Miami. Neither can I. I can't wait to beat LSU first.
Yeah. Let's let's just get through Long Island. Let's just get past Long Island in week 1.
Hey, let's just beat the blue team first.
Unironically, though, let's get past USF because like they just have they have given teams annoying games in the last few years.
Yeah, that's true. Do they return their QB? Who is it?
Yeah, they do. They do. He was kind of disappointing last year, but they do bring him back.
So, what is
Byron
third
Brown.
year starting? Yeah, Byron Brown. I was thinking Barry and Brown. But yeah. So Byron Brown, third year starter, if I'm not mistaken. So
yes,
veteran guy, a veteran coaching staff now at USF. That could give us fits if like the talent maybe isn't as good as we think. But I don't suspect it will. I mean, if we're as good as I want us to be, it shouldn't. Maybe a close game at halftime, then we pull away. Like how those close games you were talking about have been with like Miami last year and Alabama the past 2.
Yeah, none of them were close for 4 quarters, but they were close for like a quarter and a half.
Yep, I mean, it feels good thinking there's a possibility we could win every single game on our schedule. Hey, do you
in a vacuum.
Okay,
I don't think it's a very real possibility that Florida goes 12-0.
Well, yeah,
I think looking at every game individually, there's a shot. There's a decent shot.
Because I don't think I've had that since 2020, where it's like, oh yeah, I believe we can beat Georgia. I haven't believed we can beat Georgia until this year, where I do believe we'll beat them.
You did pick us to beat Georgia, didn't you?
Yeah, okay. I picked us to lose to Texas and at Ole Miss.
That's right.
Which was a more rational because I didn't want to pick us to go 11-1. I mean, as we get through the season, more we might do another post spring predictions for the season. We'll see how things look differently there.
Yeah, I think we definitely have room to go back and readdress our preseason predictions before we get to week 1.
All right. So do we want to nothing to say on linebackers? I mean, I'll say Caleb Rios, 6'6", 244. That's pretty nice right there. Big body there. Should be able to block pretty well. We'll see how much that really affects us. We already know how good these running backs are. I don't really know if there's much we need to talk about with the running back room. Is there anything you got to say?
I mean, it's just a really good room. I mean, I don't know if there's much I even need to see from them in spring. If they're healthy, it's going to be a really good room.
And that really the offensive line, 2 notes here. Enoch Wengoy, who was last season a freshman from England. Yeah, Manchester, England. 6'7", 333. I did not realize he was 6'7". That's something that really excites me. I've heard a little bit of talk about him. He won't really play much this year, but as the time goes on, that excites me a bit.
I mean, Billy does like his guys that are built like that, doesn't he? That's he has a very clear archetype with those guys.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it. Cam Waits is 6'8", and he's playing guard.
Yeah.
So, Fletcher Westphal is also 6'8".
Yeah, Billy
Cam
wants his
Jones is
offensive lineman. Billy wants his offensive lineman to
Okay.
have the frame of like mythical giants. That's what he's looking for in an offensive lineman.
And the I think I saw this. Marcus Maskell is moving to center. So a
Interesting.
6'4" center. I mean, if you look at Jake
That's a
Slaughter,
big offensive
yeah,
lineman.
Jake Slaughter is also 6'4.5". I mean,
That's crazy. I didn't even realize that he like was like that intense with it, even
No.
down to like the center. That's funny.
So of scholarship players, can you guess who the shortest offensive lineman is?
Of anyone on scholarship?
Of offensive
Honestly,
linemen.
I don't know. You just got to tell me.
Can you tell me who the highest rated recruit on Florida's offensive line is?
Wait, actually, I'm trying to think who it would be. Is it Najee Harris?
No. It's Jason Zandamela.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. That does make sense.
And guess what? He's
Yeah,
our
Rob,
shortest offensive lineman.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that's just a funny coincidence because when you think of highly ranked offensive linemen, I mean, you think of those guys like a lot of players like Evan Neal from Alabama, who's like 6'7", 6'8". Those really tall, highly athletic offensive linemen. And you look at Florida, and it's like, oh yeah, you have a 6'7" 3-star. You have a 6'7" guy that was unranked. Oh, but we have a 6'2" 3/4, so it's still tall, obviously, and top 50 guy. I think that's just an outlier.
Well, I think they do also, like, I think in their project guys, they're like, okay, we can teach you the skills. We can't teach you being 6'8". You know what I mean? I think that's kind of their logic with that.
Absolutely. Is there anyone else or any position we've really missed on that you have anything to say about on the roster?
I mean, other than, I think we've addressed pretty much everything except specialists, which is, I don't know if there's a ton to address there.
I don't even see them on the roster. Oh, there we go. Kickers.
Yeah.
Long snappers. They exist. Trace Mack should be good.
Trace Mack should be good. Doman, like, I mean, seems fine. We'll see.
Seems fine. Have you seen any clips of Tommy Doman?
Not really. I've heard some people say, like, was it you who's saying that like he has maybe like some accuracy issues?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's what I think I said that.
No, but I don't think I've seen any clips, certainly from spring, of him.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, there's not much else to say on the special teams.
Yeah.
3 days of practice this week. Should have a lot of content to fill.
Sorry, real quick. It should be Harrison Bailey.
Yes.
It should be the quarterback transfer from most recently Louisville, right? That's where he was at?
Yeah.
Okay, because he'd been at 3 schools. Yeah. Quarterback transfer from Louisville.
Oh, wait, I have some stuff here. Roberts has confidence that sophomore LJ, mostly an F. So Ron Roberts has confidence that sophomore LJ McCray can thrive at the jack linebacker spot. He is expected to play more of that position in 2025. Called him an impact player with special flexibility to shine at either spot. He says they do a lot of the same things. So the transition hasn't been difficult for McCray. The one area they want to work on with him is dropping into coverage as a backer. When you put him on a tight end and things like that, he is a physical mismatch.
Mm-hmm.
Which, from that 5-star defensive lineman physical threat, is what you want to hear. Working on the dropping back in coverage. And, I mean, people argue you shouldn't drop back defensive linemen / edges in the coverage, but that's just nonsense.
I mean, I think it depends on the skill set, but I mean, yeah, I think just in general, this move, like, playing this position, if you're just more naturally gifted, I think gives you a higher ceiling. So I think like they're putting more on his plate, but I think it's giving him the potential to be a really good player. Ultra
Gator here. I shook Fletcher Westfall's hands after last year's spring game. Probably the biggest hand I have ever seen up close. Well, maybe those hands can lock down Harold Perkins coming off the edge week 3. That's what I'm